These are the health law.
All right, we'll open the meeting of the Finance Committee. Today is September 21st. It's about 8 minutes past 7. Thank you. We do have a quorum here. Tonight we have two folks that are not with us. Michelle Christensen Oldham is not here. She's excused, and so is Sean Tyler. And tonight we have some guests. The town manager is with us tonight, and we also have Captain John Nuttall from the... I said chief. Why do I do that? I'm so sorry. Can we start the tape again? Sorry, we have...
I might not have just...
we have the chief with us. I don't know why, but I've done it about 3 or 4 times now. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Don't apologize for that.
Sorry about that. Okay, so just real quick, one of the things that we're doing the next few meetings of ours, probably between now and town meeting, the fall town meeting, is we're going to be bringing in the department heads along with the town manager to speak in regard to their capital plans, for the capital plan for the year. Tonight we will have, like I said, the fire department, and we'll also have the police department in a little later. And so John, if you're ready, because I know we have guests, I'm going to throw it to you. Anybody have anything they want to bring up first? Nope. All right, we're good to go. You guys.
Just very quickly, I handed out an opinion from council as it relates to the changes in the municipal health law. And, you know, you can read that at your leisure. That's going to help us in future years. It doesn't have anything to do with the capital budget at this point, but it's something I wanted you to have. And you do have from last week's handout dated 9/12/2011, the total capital plan for the fire department.
Does everybody have theirs from last year, from last week? I can share if you don't.
I may share the, oh no, I got 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's also in the minutes. Right on, Deb.
If you don't, I'll make copies.
No, we got it, they're in the minutes anyway, so we
Okay.
probably each have a copy or so. Thanks. Yep, so we're still on the same one dated 9/12, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chief.
All
It's all
set.
yours.
I'll hit the first top 3 priorities, and the main ones. I'm not going to go in that order, and I'll explain that in a minute. My number 1 priority is the Station 1 roof repair. This is the roof portion on the apparatus floor. It's not the entire station. If you look at our station on Route 18 on Bedford Street, there's 2 separate roofs. There's the lower roof that's over the apparatus floor, and there's the upper roof that goes over the living quarters. That was replaced about 8 to 10 years ago, the upper one. The lower roof over the apparatus floor, or the garage, if you will, that's the original tar and gravel roof from 1964 when the station was built. It is leaking like a sieve. It has caused electrical problems just this year alone. And if I have something tripping in that apparatus floor, because the station was built in 1964, we have limited electrical circuits. They didn't have computers in 1964, so I almost lost the computer system because of that, because it leaked on an electrical device, it tripped out the circuit breaker, and it started to affect the circuit that the computers were plugged into. Since then, I have rewired the computer circuits in my office, which feeds the entire server for the fire department. We're trying to deal with that. However, I still have, the roof is leaking on the apparatus. It's leaking down into one of the main electrical subpanels. It's leaking on to the thermostat, which controls the heat. It's got to be done. I got a couple of quotes. They're about $25,000. That would be stripping it in its entirety down to the steel deck, repairing any steel deck that needs to be done, which may be extra. That could exceed this if they find major damage, and then replacing that roof. We also incurred some damage back in the blizzard in December, where one of our mast antennas from the wind blew and actually pushed the roof deck in a little bit, so that is actually adding to the leak. So there are some repairs that need to be done. But that is my number 1 priority. It's not flashy, it's not that exciting, but it really needs to be done.
And what was the estimate, did you say?
$25,000.
That is identified as Station 1 roof repair, strip and repair the original roof covering the 1964, from 1964 over the apparatus floor is $25,000.
Correct.
And then I think your second priority would be the windows?
Actually,
Maybe
second one is
dispatch.
going to be dispatch and software, but the windows, I can talk about them now because we're talking about the station repairs. The windows are also original to 1964, when the building was originally built. There's single pane glass. We've been through this with the schools, and I didn't do a cost estimate on the amount of energy we're losing because it's common sense. It's occupied 24 hours a day times 47 years. I can only imagine the amount of energy we've lost. I don't think we're planning anytime soon to move out of that building or build a new station. As much as we'd like it, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I'm just trying to maintain what we have. It would be a savings with the energy use as well as the security for the building. One of the estimates, the estimate I had for that was about $70,000. That's to replace, we have, I think, 25 windows. And that would be completely pulling them out and putting modern windows similar to what they did at the high school.
How long would it take them to do that? Are they standard kind of windows, or?
He didn't really get into that. They kind of gave me a quick ballpark
Yeah, yeah.
price, but, you know, we didn't get into it too much just to,
I was just
yeah.
wondering.
I don't think it would take too long. It's, you know, we're there 24 hours a day, and it wouldn't be an issue as much us for the fire department as would for the
Sure.
schools.
Yeah.
You know, we can be flexible, but.
Yes, go ahead.
Chief, you got the flat roof like the police station had.
Mhm.
Would it be feasible to make that a pitched roof? You know what I mean?
At one point, we considered putting living quarters up there. It's not engineered for that.
Right.
That
I mean,
that would be my hesitation on it.
Yeah, I mean, just to.
Just to put a rain roof, to
Yeah.
pitch it.
Right, pitch it.
The price I got was just to strip it down and just put another,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know,
Yeah,
all
we didn't get
those
into
flat
that, but.
roofs, they all leak. We had problems, like you say, down the police station.
I mean, this actually does have
Horrendous.
a good drain. There's some roof drains on that, but it's just, it's exceeded its
old.
lifestyle.
Right.
It's old, you know.
No, it heats up in the summer and then freezes during the winter and.
What we did on the upper roof several years ago, there was a roof drain there. They actually built up the edges so it pitches more into the drain, and that seems to have solved it. I'm guessing they'd probably do something similar to that. So, it would be, you know, it could be the same company, but it would be the same type of technique
Sure.
that they did with that flat roof.
Okay.
Any question on the windows or the?
So you were saying, though, the windows would not be your second priority on here? Just?
Correct. Yeah, I want to get that on the radar, that, you know,
Yeah,
we
get
really
it.
should start talking about that. I mean, if we can do it this year, that would be great, but
Mhm.
it at least needs to be addressed. I'm going to jump past dispatch, which really is my second priority, and talk about the administrative software, because you almost need a little education on that software piece going into the dispatch, because they're related. It's all these little pieces of the puzzle that we're trying to accomplish almost simultaneously. But the fire department software that we have at the station right now is for the reporting of the fire records, which we maintain for our own records, and we also are mandated to report to the state fire marshal, and it does that. And that's about all that it does. And it's an old version. It's about 6 versions behind of where it could be. It really wasn't updated. Aaron from the schools, when he helped us over the summer reconfiguring the fire department computer system into the network, into the server, was speaking to the original author of that software program down in Florida, trying to get us to migrate all of that stored data into it. And I think the word they kept using, it was brittle, and it's barely hanging on. I'm not a computer guy, but whatever the software type it is, it's ancient. I'd like to go into, there's a company called IMC, the police use it. I think it's Information Management, whatever IMC stands for. I believe
Information
that's what it
Management
is.
Corporation.
Corporation. The police have used it for 18 years, and if we do a combined dispatch with the police or anybody else, or even if we just did a standalone, either way, that would try to bring the entire administrative record keeping for the fire department together into one thing that we don't have. It's almost embarrassing to say this, but some of the way that we're maintaining records, it's like the 1970s at the fire station, at the fire department. We have the fire records and reports are on the computer. The ambulance records are on a second computer. It's a whole second software. That's modern, that's up to date, because that's generating the revenue. That's separate. The payroll is done by paper. The billing is done by Quicken. The inspections are done by paper and 3-ring binders. Nothing is really, you know, the address files are separately filed, and we try to, it's 1970s. The IMC software, it's very expensive. It's at least $60,000. That figure is based on if we were to link with the police. and we'll discuss that afterwards. If we were to do a standalone, that could be a higher figure. That could be somewhat higher with the licensure and so forth. But this would allow us to do the fire reports. It would correct the fire reports, because as we send our fire reports to the state fire marshal, if we don't fill those out correctly, I'm not talking spelling, I'm talking about usually it's a categorical error, you know, a brush fire, was it grass or was it natural vegetation? It gets into it. And if you don't do that correctly, the fire marshal sends it back to us, we correct it, we bring it back, there's a backlog with that. This would automatically correct that. It would enable us to really mine that data much better. When I have to try to do some reporting and try to get some of these statistics from the previous years, it is a nightmare. I've had to talk to Mike Fay, the writer of this program, myself a few times, because it's not simply, you know, inputting what you need. You're doing all these algorithms, and this is greater than less than, and that, and it's not user-friendly. It's not designed to be. And that affects how our statistics can come out. This will do the inspections. Every inspection report that the deputy or any of the captains do for any particular place would electronically be filed with that address, as with permits or licenses. It's all together. The complete history of any address would be right there at our fingertips, and we could print it out on scene if there's an issue. There'd be a list of hazmats, hazardous materials, you know, the stuff that we really should be doing that we just don't have the capability to do. The payroll would finally, it wouldn't be a half a day's event, it would be a 10-minute thing. It would be easier to, I don't want to say more accurate because it is accurate, but it would be foolproof. The police are using it now, it's a lot easier to do. For personnel, we could have every certification record for every member, and they're numerous, and we're always redoing our certifications on the medical end. It's all right there. It's a fire department in a can, basically. And it would actually help us control a lot, you know, overtime usage. You can see if there's any patterns. It's the control that we really don't have. That request is, no matter what we do with the dispatch or anything, I'd like to see that software. That would change the way your fire department operates and increase the service on that.
So that would be a second priority, John?
Not really.
No.
Dispatch is a major priority, and I'll explain that next, unless you guys have questions on me. Now, the
No.
$60,000, that figure, and I'm learning this as I go, I should have probably asked for more. Depending on what we do, that could be a little bit more, and also depending if we need a different server to house that. But, you know, the $60,000 was a figure they gave me based on a couple of things. It may be a little bit more than that, and I apologize for that.
So the 60,000 figure could be more,
A little bit more,
and that is if you do standalone, is that correct?
correct.
If you join in with central dispatch with.
That's where I get that $60,000 from.
That's where you get the 60.
Correct.
So
The other issue is if we do
75?
Yeah, and if we do that's probably safe. If we do a central dispatch with the Abington Police, that figure could go up a little bit too, depending on the computer issues to house all of our information on that. The closer we look at this, the devil's in the details. We're seeing we may have to make some changes on the police end to make sure that we could house all of the information. Any questions on the software? Okay, my number 2 real priority is the central dispatch, or dispatch. We're running 4-man shifts right now. I'm hoping to get that back up to 5 right around the first of the year. I'm having some difficulty with the fire academies, either the state or Boston or Brockton, trying to get my other new firefighters trained. Until that point, then I'll be able to go to 5-man shifts, and then I can reopen Station 2. Either way, even at 5-man shifts, we're going to minimize the number of times we're dumping the station. And by dumping the station, I mean there's nobody left in the fire station. We're all out in the call. If there's a fire or a serious incident, we're still going to dump out the station because I will need all 5 firefighters at that scene. So even the most critical times when we really need somebody back at the station to maintain control with the radio, to make the phone call notifications or whatever, we still have nobody there. We're doing it constantly now because we're running 4-man shifts. Bless you. And you know, sometimes guys are coming in, sometimes guys are not. The burnout rate is there. We're trying to address that. But even optimally, if we're back to 5-man shifts, I still have to try to maintain that dispatch in one way or another. The reasons for that are every time we dump out, nobody's monitoring the fire alarm system. And I still believe that's a huge liability for the town, that if because, beyond our control. If we have nobody in the station because we're busy, but if a fire alarm comes in for either fire, police, or EMS, which some of the buttons are now, whether there's a true emergency or whether it's even property damage. Maybe there's not a life emergency, but you could have a fire or you could have just a broken sprinkler pipe. I used the analogy, I think last year, let's say New England Art breaks a sprinkler pipe on the 3rd floor. The water damage is going to occur either way. The question is going to be how long did it take the fire department to get notification of that and then respond and shut the water off? And if it exceeds a certain amount of time, I think we're going to be liable for that. Because there's nobody monitoring that fire alarm system, and fortunately or not, we're in the fire alarm business. Even if I wanted to try to get out of the fire alarm business and ask both the municipality and the residences that have it or the businesses to go to a private, that's going to take time. Usually that's like 5 years. And that's a large expense on the businesses I really don't want to impose. We've mandated that they have part of the municipal fire alarm system. I think we have to maintain our end of that at this point as well. The second one is to maintain the communication. When we have the firefighters or the ambulance out doing a call, we need somebody to, if they're calling for help, if somebody's radio alert goes, on our radios there's an emergency tone button, that if you're in trouble, it's the Mayday button. That sends a signal back to the station, and it'll say firefighter Smith is in trouble, or firefighter Jones, whatever. Well, that's only good if there's somebody reading that board. Now, Plymouth County can also read it, but that's down in Plymouth. Depending on the strength of the portable radio, I'd much prefer to have it here in Abington or locally. And just trying to, we're constantly calling Rockland, can you notify the wiring inspector? Sometimes they get the right guy, sometimes they don't. We're flying by the seat of our pants, and we can't do that. So for all these reasons, we really need to have the central dispatch. I proposed a couple options on here. I've been working closely with the police chief, the police department, to see the feasibility of doing a combined Abington Fire, Abington Police Dispatch. And there is a cost to that. What we would have to do, beyond hiring personnel, first we have to move some of the infrastructure from the fire department to the police department. And that infrastructure includes the software so we can talk to each other. I briefly spoke about that earlier. You need that link in between, whether we use the existing fiber in town or not. We have to get a radio transmitter and receiver to the police station so we can basically take our existing fire alarm signals and send it via radio to a receiver at the police station. Then they can receive to take care of that portion of it. As well, and there's some minor regular mutual aid radios as well. Right now they have the capability from the police station to talk to all of the fire units via radio, but we need another radio to talk to the mutual aid because the fire service is very heavy in relying on mutual aid, whether it be from ambulances or apparatus, whatever. So we have to outfit them with that.
So is that radio the same as the transmitter receiver, or that's separate?
Separate.
Yeah.
3 separate entities. As well as I spoke, we're not sure what the final expense would be on if we have to update the computers at the police station to maintain all of this information. So that's some of the infrastructure charge. I think I had, it's about $161,000. That went a little heavy on that because of the computers, because we're not quite sure, but that would be to get some of the fire infrastructure there. And then you have to do the personnel. And quite frankly, I just used the same figure he used for his personnel. He wants to hire, the police want to hire some dispatchers on their end. It's about $243,000 to maintain the police.
That's a full year.
That's for a full year.
We would be doing, if we do propose central dispatch combined, it would be from November to June, but June 30th, but then you have
A full year.
245 the following year, so you build a larger cost base, up front for both police and fire.
But that's
But
only, I
that's
believe,
only-
that's only for police.
Police. Now you have to double it to add a second person for fire.
We're talking $500,000 a year annually just to maintain those positions. When I saw that figure, I started, to be honest with you, to question the feasibility of this working, because the town's not as affluent as we'd like it to be. So my option number one is to do the Abington Police at those figures, the 161 plus the 243 for personnel, and that would be reoccurring every year. That would be probably the optimal, if we could, for the town service to tie everything together.
So what you're saying is the 161,000 is a one-time cost?
Correct.
The actual now is a reoccurring
Yeah.
cost, which is really outside of capital, but something that we would have to,
That's an
you know,
operational
consider.
cost.
It's an
Correct.
operational cost versus a capital cost.
To
main reason
understand
I
the
also-
whole thing, I was going to understand the whole thing, you have to understand the two pieces of it,
That's right.
because you're not going to go and upgrade your infrastructure and not be able to man it,
No.
and then you're not going to
It'd be like
budget for
buying a
your
car that no
salaries,
one
and then
can
you can't
drive.
drive, right? Just kind of
The,
bring
the
it.
reason I relied on his figure, a couple reasons. One is it's accurate to some other figures I had as well. But two is if you're gonna have two dispatchers in the same room, working side by side, I'm assuming that you're gonna pay them fairly close to each other. It's, you know, I
It's common sense.
think that's only fair, so.
That's right.
So that's option number one. Option number two is, well, if I have to come up with the $243,000 annually for fire dispatchers anyway, at that point, just put them at the fire station. We don't have to do an infrastructure move, we'll save the 161 up front, and I'll just put them in the fire station like we had before, and we're good to go. Option number three is we still have the possibility, if, this is only for fire, this is not police, this would not work for the police, I don't believe, for a couple of reasons, but for the fire, to take care of my problems that I just talked about when we don't have anybody at the station, of going and joining in a regional dispatch for Holbrook Fire, the town of Holbrook. That is about $100,000 annually, and it's probably about $25,000 up front to do some infrastructure changes, because a lot of that we would be able to, probably via microwave antenna from the Philibrown Tower on North Quincy Street, which we have our radio repeater up there anyway, via microwave antenna, link into the Norfolk County Control Network. Right now, Norfolk County is completely linked up this way, from Blue Hills all the way down to the end of the county. Holbrook Fire is the hub of that. Holbrook Fire is Norfolk County Control. All we have to do, it's up and running, we just have to link into it. Now let me explain a little bit about what this could be for the fire department. Right now, Holbrook Fire, they operate in a combined police fire station. It's about maybe 8 years old on Route 37. And for them it worked, you know, they designed that station for that. So their dispatch is doing police and fire in Holbrook. They're also doing the dispatch service for the Sharon Fire Department, not the Sharon Police, Sharon Fire only. Now, they're not bordering communities, but they're still in the same county.
Yeah, which is
Uh-huh.
Norfolk.
And, you know, I think they're like 25 miles separate. I think that was a figure I heard. They're doing the radio transmissions, they're doing the fire alarm transmissions. Sharon also has a similar fire alarm system that we do. Sharon has a similar call volume as Abington Fire does. They're also doing emergency medical dispatch, which is, you know, I'm not trying to take anything from the police, but I do have to disclose that that $100,000 a year would include, for the town of Abington, emergency medical dispatch, or it could, if everybody was willing to do that. They're one of two areas in the state.
What would the cost be if we included police and fire in Holbrook dispatch?
I did not cost that. I don't think it would work. In some of the previous conversation with the police chief, I don't think it would work for them anyway, because they still have to maintain somebody at their station. But I did not get that cost on that. And they're not doing that for Sharon right now either. They're just doing fire at this point. And I'll explain, this is going to get into detail in a minute. Back to Holbrook for a moment. Beyond Holbrook Fire and Police and beyond Sharon Fire, Holbrook Dispatch also takes care of Norfolk County Control, which is anytime there's a fire or major medical emergency in Norfolk County, Holbrook Fire is dispatching that. They're the hub for coordinating all of the towns into one central radio frequency, one central unit. And they're also dispatching for the entire state hazmat teams. They have their act together. They know what they're doing. This is not something that they're just designing. This is up and running. This is something that they're offering to do to us.
It's a good
Yeah.
alternative.
It is a good alternative. Again, only for the fire. I can't really, you know, speak for the police on that, but
I might have missed it. Did you say how long they've been doing that?
about a year and a half, I believe. Now, back to Sharon, and this is important, John, this kind of answers your question. They're only doing the fire. when you get into 911, okay, this is going to be a small lesson in how 911 works. I know the chief knows this, and there's been some changes that have occurred recently and are occurring soon. Enhanced 911, there's a primary and a secondary, they call it a PSAP. It's the Public Safety Answering Point. For the town of Abington, the Abington Police is the primary PSAP. All 911 calls go into the Abington Police, and they, whether it's a police issue or if they see it's a fire or emergency medical issue, if it's a fire or medical, then they would download it to us as the secondary PSAP, okay? A third portion of this is if anybody calls 911 with a cell phone. That goes to the state police in Middleborough, I think, and then they would download it. Now, you can transfer a call up to 3 times, a total and not to exceed 3 times. And this is mainly because if it's a cell phone. If somebody calls 911 on a cell phone, it's a medical emergency, say, and they could be anywhere. State police answer first, you're looking for the town of Abington, it would then go to Abington Police, you're looking for fire, it will go to the fire, we deal with it. Okay, that's how that can work. Starting July 1st, 2012, they're going to require emergency medical dispatch. They have to be certified emergency medical dispatchers so that they can take the information, but then they can also talk to you over the phone and give you medical instruction. If it's somebody choking, they can try to, as best they can, teach you CPR. It's a very skilled individual. It's intense training that goes with this because it's not usually a calm situation. They have to try to maintain control. They have to maintain calmness. It's a profession into itself. Some towns are opting to train their available personnel, whether it be police or fire, to do that. Not everybody's good at that. Some people are better at just doing that. You may not want those people out in the field, but they're great doing emergency medical dispatching. If we went to Holbrook, we'd be dealing just with trained and veteran EMD, dispatchers trained in EMD. Holbrook is one of 2 locations in the state currently doing that. They've actually beat the mandate. Holbrook is doing it, and the city of Boston is doing it. As far as I know, those are the only 2 in the state that are doing that.
Doing what?
Emergency medical dispatch right now. They're doing it now before the
Prior
mandate.
to the deadline.
Oh, there's other communities that are doing it.
But they're up and, they're offering the service.
Oh, yeah,
For
on
the
a
other
regional
towns.
basis.
On a regional basis,
Right,
I'm sorry.
yes. There are other separate communities that do pre-arrival emergency medical dispatch. But this is on a regional basis.
Now, what could happen, and again, I haven't really had a chance to talk to the police on this to see, if somebody calls 911 and it goes to Abington, they realize it's a medical emergency, instead of downloading the call to Abington Fire, it will be downloaded to Holbrook Fire, who then talks to us. They could then grasp that call, and they could be taking care of the emergency medical dispatch from that point.
Are there any mandates as to which level for secondary,
It could be
primary?
primary or
Oh,
secondary.
it can be either,
It could
okay.
be either or.
Okay. Go ahead,
And if
Jimmy.
Holbrook was doing it, if they're talking to the patient and getting updates, and they're also talking to us, my perspective, that would be more ideal than having a third person, whether it be Abington Police Dispatchers. If they're talking to the patient, now we have 3 entities involved, and I think that can get confusing. I'd rather limit that. There may be disagreement with that. That's from my experience, just, you know, the more people you have involved, the more room there is for something's not going to get shared accidentally, just so that we know what it is. The
So-
timeline on this could be up and running in months. It's if that.
So
Could be very short
if
term.
we were to appropriate, $100,000, that's a reoccurring appropriation, so it would be in your budget, let's say.
Correct.
So that's $100,000 for the year. If we prorate and decide that we're gonna do it November 1st, what would be the difference in that cost? In other words, it's $100,000 for the year,
Mhm.
but we're not, if we said to Holbrook Dispatch, we want you to do fire and do the pre-medical arrival component for fire, or in this case, it would be police, because if we're gonna do central dispatch for police, that's gonna be X number of dollars every year reoccurring.
Correct.
If we do it, will we get a prorated amount from Holbrook to do just fire?
We'd have to meet with them
But would you
The
assume
next step
that-
would be a larger meeting, because, you know, I don't want to speak for the police, you know, he's going to have his questions on this, I'm sure.
No, I'm just talking fire, not police. Just fire. What would be
Well,
the
you just-
prorated amount? In other words, right now it's 100,000 for each year.
Correct.
If
But
we
I don't
just-
think they go in fiscal year, they're just, you know, they've actually, in talking to the Holbrook chief, he's been very,
Well, we have to appropriate fiscal year. So what I'm saying to you is we go back to Holbrook and we say, we're interested in just doing fire at this
Sure.
point.
I'll get
There's a
that figure for you.
$25,000 radio frequency, microwave radio frequency that we have to do. That's a capital cost.
Correct.
But the operating cost is 100,000.
I understand,
And-
Well, I'll
and
have
what
to,
I'm
I'll get that
saying is
figure
if
for
we
you.
do it from November through June 30th, what does that cost?
Okay,
And we may need to make that appropriation.
sure.
Because if we're to do combined dispatch anyway, it's gonna be 245,000 twice. If we do central dispatch pre-arrival for police, it's 245 plus 100,000, it's 345. It's still cheaper than doing combined central dispatch.
And the other thing is, we wouldn't have any personnel costs, and we could opt out with a 30-day notice. If for some reason we tried this, and it's just not working for whatever reason,
And what's the notice? What did you say?
about 30 to 90 days, we could opt out. You know, they're very flexible with,
But to opt out, we have to have an alternative.
we'd have to have an
plan.
alternative,
Right.
obviously, yeah.
We can't just say,
Right.
we're not doing it.
No, but it is,
Yeah,
But you're not
Yeah.
locked, but
It's
we
nice
wouldn't
that you know
necessarily
you
be
have an
locked
option,
into.
you're not locked into having, if it's not working for
Right, we
us,
can get out of
we
it.
can make a different decision.
We did try to do this back when I was chief. We tried to do pre-arrival instructions, but it was blocked by the firefighters union. They said we weren't qualified for it. We had flip charts, and they wouldn't allow us to do it. It would have been done back then. But-
I think even the new law would have superseded that, because now they have to be certified. And it's, the training on this, it's about 40 hours up front, and then it's 16 hours annually, I think, just to maintain it.
We had to train everybody back then too, chief. They had to go to school for it.
But this is this.
Now it's mandated.
Yeah.
No, I know it's
Yep.
mandated.
But this option is also like a plug and play. It's kind of like you don't have to maintain, somebody quits or whatever, and they'll just bring somebody else in. We just pay
Abington
our,
wouldn't have to
we
deal with
pay
the
our,
personnel
we pay our
issues.
bill,
Yeah.
and they take, and they
You wouldn't have to
service.
deal with the
No health
healthcare, we wouldn't have to deal
No
with.
health
No health
Insurance.
insurance, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Is there any feedback that anyone has provided? It's all been good? I mean, there's service quality is,
They're looking to expand this, and the reason they're looking, the more towns they get involved with this, the cheaper it would be,
yeah.
because you're getting more
Economy
grants from the
of scale.
state. Right now, I think each town, including Abington, they get about 32,000 a year for, I think the grant for doing 911, and Abington would still get that. I think the police would still get that. Towns that do a couple towns together, that goes up to about 91. I think Holbrook's getting that because he's doing part of Sharon,
As a grant, you mean?
as the state grant, yeah.
Yeah.
If you start to get into becoming a regional emergency communication center, which is what they'd be doing, now you're jumping up to Holbrook would be getting about 300 to 400,000 a year, which is going to take care of their personnel costs, which
Right,
helps sustain our cost.
right.
It's yeah.
Keeps it lower, yeah.
This is why you see there's one being online now in Hingham, the towns of Hingham, Hull, Norwell, and Situate, I believe. That's coming online now. That's taken about 8 years to build it. They're looking at doing one in Bridgewater, similar. That's just on the drawing board. The one in Holbrook's up and running, and it's proven. So, and you don't have to be part of Norfolk County for this. They purposely did not name it Norfolk County. It's the Southeast Regional Center, so it's an option. Again, to be honest with you, optimally, my best alternative for all of these three would be number 2, because I'd have an extra individual in the fire station. For the town, it would be number 1, because we'd be sharing resources, sharing information. This, I'm also thinking that, this may not be, there may be problems with this, but it would solve the problems. Right now, having nothing in the station all the time is worse than any of these.
What do you think the impact would be if we had Holbrook dispatch as far as overtime is concerned? Because right now, what's happening is that when you're bringing people in,
Correct.
when you dump out, to cover. And if you get a second call, they're dumping out, so no one's
right.
doing the fire
Yep.
alarm monitoring. Will they do fire alarm monitoring?
Yes,
Okay, so that
Yeah.
takes care of that piece.
yes.
We may have a reduction in overtime that we could commit to partially paying some portion of the
The
100,000.
overtime portion would be, and you hear this in some towns, including Holbrook. Holbrook does this now. Right now, if I dump the station, it's an all-call. Anybody can come in if they want. To be honest with you, we're only getting 1 or 2 guys, because the guys have been there so much, that they're trying to enjoy some time off. But for routine, just empty station, fire is different, you certainly want everybody. The reason we have it available for everybody to come back, because there's nobody in the station to limit who's there, who's not. Whitman, Holbrook, some of these towns, when you have somebody there, you say 2 firefighters needed station coverage. The phone rings, you can hear it in the radio, guys are at home listening, calling, station's covered, I got 2 guys committed coming in. You can limit that.
Yeah.
I don't have that now.
But you will have the ability to
We
limit
would have that. We
And
would
that would
have
have a positive impact on overtime.
It could, yes. It's a missing piece that we've never had.
Would you also feel that you wouldn't have to put that call in if you?
I'd still
that
want to
all
have somebody available to respond, because otherwise,
There's nobody in the
if
station's
everybody's
town.
committed,
Yeah.
even though there's nobody at the station, we've got a communications link. I'm talking to somebody in Holbrook. But if and when that second call comes in, which it's
It will.
quite frequently that it happens, I don't want to turn Abington into a call department, because we're much busier, and the infrastructure of Abington is much busier traffic-wise than like a Plimpton. They can do this.
Yeah.
Plimpton, they have predominantly, it's a call department, but there's no traffic.
Right.
And they're only doing a tiny fraction of the amount of calls we're doing. I don't want to have somebody responding from their house, through the traffic, to the station, get the apparatus, and then respond. I still need to have somebody there ready to go.
No, it makes sense to have somebody there, so.
Yeah, the
But like-
apparatus can't drive itself.
No,
No,
that's
no
right.
sense.
We're still trying to do the best with very limited personnel and resources. This is, again, I put this out there as an option. It could solve a lot of problems. It's not that, this may present a few more problems as it comes, but, I'm still not gonna have somebody in my station. If I have walk-in traffic, there's still nobody there. But it is plugging some major holes that we have right now, that it's definitely a step in the right direction.
So let me just understand, you have 3 options for central dispatch, the 161 plus the 243, which is your option 1.
That's option 1, moving everything to the police.
Moving everything over to police and having central dispatch.
Correct.
You call it combined dispatch, which is the 161 plus the personnel, which is 243. Option 2 is central dispatch, civilian dispatch at the fire station, and that's 243.
Correct, because if I'm gonna spend the money to hire fire dispatchers anyway, and then I have to move everything over to the police station,
You
and
say
I
that
still have
161.
nobody in my station at that point, I just keep them, I'll just hold them into my station.
Okay.
I don't have to move the infrastructure, and I'll still have a body in my station all the time.
And on option 3 is a regional dispatch, which is $100,000 a year, plus $25,000 for the infrastructure, which is a one-time cost,
Correct.
the $25,000. So you actually need, under option 3, $25,000 for capital,
Correct.
and $100,000 to pay, or some prorated portion to pay Holbrook for central dispatch. That takes care of you.
Correct. And the other piece with Holbrook that's also optimal is they use IMC dispatch software as well. That they're using, or they've got a large grant that they're getting into all this, and it includes getting the IMC dispatch software over there. So either way, if I get the IMC, I could talk to anybody, assuming that link is up.
You're not going to lose, the town of Abington, if Abington Fire decides to go to Holbrook Dispatch, your understanding is that whatever 911 grant Abington is getting now, they're not going to forfeit that,
I believe Abington still gets it, because Abington would still be the primary PSAP.
because the fire is
Abington
the
Fire
primary
would be.
piece of it. Okay.
No,
The
the
police.
police
I'm
is still the
sorry,
primary.
Police is the
The
primary.
fire would be second, but I believe the police still get that.
Yeah.
Because they're the primary.
Correct. I don't want to take anything from them. That's not what this is about. This is trying to, come up with something that otherwise may not be affordable, and we're still left out there.
We have to look
looking
at it
something
from a
done.
financial
That's right.
feasibility perspective.
That's right. You
What
gotta come
makes
up with a
sense?
plan that works. And it's feasible.
I think people would be happy at the fact that we're sharing resources and we're not paying health insurance for yet another group of hires. The bigger question is, why can't the police do it? You know, we'll find out from the police what their issues are.
And again, even if, just to be clear on this too, I may have confused it, but if Abington Fire got this IMC software that the Abington Police currently have and Holbrook Fire also would have, that does not mean I can plug in and talk to the police too, because as much as we'd like to share the information, it would be beneficial to us both, it's two separate databases. So if I'm not plugged in with the police, we may not have that opportunity to share the information. As much
Okay,
as
so
both
there are
would probably
drawbacks.
want
There are
to.
drawbacks.
There are still some drawbacks to it. That's probably more of a,
Is there a way in which we can plug that drawback and be able to now have them download that information as part of the $100,000 that we're paying?
I don't know if that would occur. I'm not sure how feasible that would be.
It's something we could
With
check
me
out.
trying to maintain, the control of, some of the critical information. I'm not sure.
We could check it out.
We'd have to check.
Go ahead.
John, do you see that as a drawback to having Southeast Regional do the fire dispatching? If they
We wouldn't,
can't then
we wouldn't be able to talk
communicate-
to the police. But the alternative is if the town cannot
But
afford, but if,
you talk to the police now, though.
no. We don't share, we don't even have IMC at the
That's what
fire
I'm saying,
station.
so
We're not doing it right now anyway. It would be optimistic we could.
it would be a nice
However,
thing to be able to do. It's not something we're currently doing.
correct.
We're not losing anything.
We're not losing it. That's
That's right.
That's
We're
what
not
I was
losing
getting at.
anything.
It's just,
Um,
and you would, if I'm hearing correctly, you would still want to get that software upgrade,
Yes.
because, I mean,
Well,
there's
it's
so
not an
many.
upgrade, it's a whole change.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the new software, because that just covers so many
That's
other
right.
things. It would be sort of the software of choice.
Correct.
That other municipalities are using as well. Go ahead.
Sorry. Would the regional dispatch, would that require that update?
I'm
The
going to need
IMC.
that software either way, no matter what we do.
I'm just curious if
It does not require
it
it.
doesn't
No.
require anything
No.
special for just the antenna. And where does the antenna go, John?
I'm assuming Philibron's Tower up on North Quincy Street, but, we have the technicians come in and take a look at exactly where that would go. I think that's
And
like
is that
woodwork.
similar to an antenna that you already have?
No, this would be a microwave antenna.
Microwave antenna.
Right
It's a
now,
broader
Norfolk
band
County
frequency.
is completely linked with the microwave antennas. And actually, the head dispatcher for Holbrook Fire is the one that did that. He's also the Norfolk County Communications Director.
And while we can link a whole entire county using this microwave technology, we can't hook the fire department
To the police?
to the police department.
I have no problems using Philibron's Tower. We have our radio repeater up there now. I don't know what the issues are, but for whatever reason, I think the police were not using that tower. So, yeah, I can't answer for that.
No, we were always using the water tower on Lincoln Street.
Yeah, with microwave need direct line of sight. The police station is down in a valley, it appears. We just didn't have line of sight from the fire station to the water tower to the police. 'Cause we tried that. Over the summer, we had the aerial truck up.
So
We tried that.
there's line of sight to Holbrook? Because of
The
where
tower on North
tower
Quincy
didn't-
Street is huge.
Okay.
That's,
See, the police wouldn't allow, the police wouldn't allow fire to use,
I think the
North
police didn't
Quincy.
want to use the North Quincy Tower for whatever reason. I'm not sure
Well, we had our own
what the
site.
issue was, but yeah.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
I just have a question regarding, you had mentioned that if this whole work thing, say you did that, it didn't work out, we can opt out within 30 to 90 days.
Correct.
Would we then go back to the central dispatch idea?
Like the town manager said, we have to come up with something to take care of the EMD, the emergency medical dispatch portion.
Okay.
If, there is a way out of it. Either way, you're gonna be paying one way or the other. This could be a cheap way to try it and see if it works. If this works, it could be
Well,
great.
if you look at it, you're paying 25,000 capital up front. I don't care about that, that's part of capital. I'm looking at the operating budget and how much we're gonna increase that base in FY13. Can we make that financial commitment? Right now, we're gonna look at increase, if we do central dispatch and combining both, it's 161 capital versus 25 for fire. And then it's upwards of
486.
243,000 for just the police side. Now you double that for the fire side because you need 2 dispatchers. And that doesn't include health benefits or the potential for health benefits. So we're looking at $500,000. I can tell you right now, we can't support
It's like another department.
increasing the base of our operating budget by $500,000 just to support central dispatch. We may be able to do, 343, but that's a stretch too.
But I guess my question also would be, say we did go with Holbrook, then we opt out, is that 161 for central dispatch? Because of that time change, based on whatever the police department does, is that gonna change, increase, or anything like that, based on the fact that we didn't go
The
with an initial-
161 is based on today's figures. It could go either way.
So that could actually increase if we don't.
Or it could decrease depending on technology,
Which
because
one do you
that's
mean
all
by
technology piece.
Right. Oh, but-
No, the central
No,
dispatch.
if we went to
I
option
see.
1.
Option
If we
1 is the
tried option 3.
161 plus the
That
243.
infrastructure.
Plus we then have
Yeah, okay.
243 on the police side.
Rick, go ahead.
Wasn't the central dispatch gonna be all part-time people? 15 hours a week?
That was Chief Budinsky's presentation for dispatch to cover, because July 1st, 2012, they have to be giving
Certified.
first
They have to be
response.
certified.
It has to be
Yeah, but-
certified, and so that was the plan he had come up with.
Right, but he
here-
was gonna
here's-
use all part-timers, right?
Well, the issue with part-timers is just that. I mean, these are guys looking for full-time positions, so you're gonna have a lot of turnover in dispatch. I guess you can do that, but I'm not really keen on having a high turnover in dispatch, because that's the eyes and ears between the police department.
No, I understand, but
street.
originally it was presented part-time.
Yeah, it may have been,
it
proposed
wasn't.
as part-time.
Certainly, and that the idea there, just for those who are listening, the idea is that if it were part-time, then you're not
You're not paying a benefit,
paying
so
a
to
benefit.
speak.
and that kind- But there's a trade-off, like you said, and as the captain said earlier, this is,
Chief,
why did I do that? I'm so sorry. Thank you. But my
I
point is.
have no problem
I
going
don't
back to
know.
captain, believe me.
No.
There's days that,
Apparently, I have no problem with you going back to captain either.
I'm sure
But
after tonight.
the point I was trying to make is that as the chief said, it's a career. I mean, people do
Sure.
this as their career, so maybe there are some that want to do it part-time, but as a true career, it's probably a
On
full-time.
the fire side, we've done both full-time dispatches when we tried to afford it at one point, which was spectacular. That worked out very well. And we've also done part-time, which the biggest issue with that was we operated 24-hour service. And when we only had somebody days, and then when they went home, we're back to, because they'd work probably 8 hours a day. And at 4:30, when they went home, we're back to square one again. So now, even if you had part-timers covering a 24-hour shift, you could try that, but you try to maintain the training. You're just getting more people to do specialized work at that point. It's tough to get the experience.
Any other questions about that? So we covered the 4 items that are on your 2012 fiscal year capital budget. I don't know that we want to get into further and further, because we're
Yeah,
really
the other ones I really put on there just to kind of get them on the radar, to be honest with you.
a replacement of an ambulance.
The SCBA air bottles, if I could talk very
Oh,
briefly
yeah.
on that. These are the air bottles, the air tanks that
Yeah.
the breathing air when we go into either a smoke-filled environment or hazardous material environment. About 65% of our bottles are going to be exempt in 2013. They have a 15-year life span, and they're going to be at 15 years. We did write a grant. We won't know about that. Even if we win it, we're going to see if the feds are going to fund it. That's
Yeah.
getting more and more difficult. So we are trying for this. We just wrote a very good grant on that. If not this year, next year, definitely. This is going to be
And that's a
necessity.
$50,000 item.
correct. That's to replace about 65%. What I'd like to do long-term, so that we don't have these large recurring things, is put a line item in my FY13 budget to begin incrementally purchasing these bottles each year, so that, you know, we don't have 1 year when we have to replace
What's the cost for each
65%.
bottle?
They're about $900 each.
Now, so if
Just
you do,
for the
if
bottle.
you do 4 a year or something like that.
We could start.
It's a
to-
manageable
You could be
number,
rotating.
and you rotate them. Very similar to what we want to do with the
Equipment.
police cruisers,
Yeah.
because they're really frontline apparatus.
Thanks. Anything else you want to share with us?
I think that's it. I'm sure, you know, pose some things that are gonna create more questions. You know, the next thing is, I'd recommend probably getting, you know, some meetings with, you know, other entities if we want to explore going this way. At that point, we'd have to look at either Holbrook or police or something like that to see which way to go. But I'm just trying to put a couple of options out there that, either way, we need to do something for the EMD. On the police side, we need to do, or the town side, we need to do something with the dispatch and the fire side. I put a couple of options out there that, you know, at least could try to cover all of them, because I'm not sure what the town can afford.
That's what we need.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. It's,
Thank you, Jim.
thank you very much for coming in tonight. It's 8 o'clock. Do you want to take 5 minutes and switch out, and then we'll have the police in?
We have chief here.
Okay, give me just a second. I'm gonna shut this off.
We have a lot of chiefs tonight.
Okay. Thank you. We're back on, and I'd like to welcome the chief of police.
Hello, thank you
Chief
for having
Podolsky,
me,
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And, all right, so we're getting some notes here.
Yeah, I got
And-
notes for
okay.
everybody, just so you have exactly, you know, what I'm gonna talk about.
Okay.
I was asked just to talk a little bit about the capital plan and to prioritize them, so I prioritized them for you from 1 to 4. And I'm gonna really say from 1 to 3. I'm gonna say realistically from 1 to 3, because even these items are, and I'll talk about that in a second. If you would like me to
Yeah,
start, I will.
Go right ahead.
Okay,
Yep,
thank
it's
you.
all yours. Go right ahead.
The first, obviously, the first issue that we have to deal with is civilian dispatchers, and this has been something that I think I've been hopping on for probably close to 4 years now. And we are coming to a point in time on July 1st where we have to do emergency medical dispatch, pre-arrival medical dispatch. We have to do that. That's mandated. We have a couple of options that I can see. Certainly one is to train all the police officers, because we never know who's going to work the desk. There really is no set time when somebody works the desk. We'd have to train everyone, or we could hire civilian dispatchers. I am in favor of civilian dispatchers for the pure reason of there's multi-purposes. One is, I think you get a more professional, because it is a profession. I mean, emergency medical dispatch has gone far beyond you know, a police officer. It really is a profession in of itself to give pre-arrival instructions. And I think if you go back a couple of years ago in one of my PowerPoint presentations I talked about, I think I showed a video of how important that is, of an actual case where a young child had died because, you know, pre-arrival instruction wasn't given on how to stop somebody from choking to death. So it's important in that sense, and also the civilian dispatchers will tie up, you know, right now we have a police officer, you're paying good money to do a function that really is really out of his or her scope. They're not really trained to do emergency medical dispatch. They could be trained, but you're adding that extra responsibility on them. I think it just makes much more sense. I would much rather have the police officer in the station house, you know, I would like to keep a police officer in the station house along with the civilian dispatcher to, work with the officer. If it gets, at times, if you've ever been in the station, you realize that there are an awful lot of people, when an accident happens or when a tragedy happens or whatever it is, everybody calls at once, and you really need a couple of people in there to handle the phones. And dispatch cruises, you get the media calling, you get everybody, you're literally trying to call out, and you can't because everybody's calling in. And also, so they could help out in that capacity when things get crazy, go from 0 to 100, which it happens. They could also watch prisoners. Right now, you have to go sight and sound. It isn't enough, even though we have a video screen. If you've ever been in the station where we watch prisoners, you have to also check on them, physically check on them. So you have to walk back and, sight and sound check somebody, and there's a card they put in front to make sure the person's still breathing, still alive. That's something that currently, when we make an arrest, we bring somebody off the road. So the entire time, it could be hours before they're booked or before they're released. There has to be somebody in the station. So you're taking that officer off the road for an extended period of time. Also booking. Whenever we make an arrest, you got to bring a police officer back to do the booking, to do all the prints. Because you don't have the officer, the arresting officer, you really shouldn't be doing the booking too. They need to be doing the report, but also because that arresting officer is just that, the arresting officer. So to have somebody who arrests, say if it's an OUI, you really don't want the arresting officer there because it can create problems. You want somebody else there that isn't the arresting officer while the officer does his or her report. Also, any type of walk-ins. We get walk-ins all the time. People, that have issues with their kids, people that have issues at the station house, whatever it might be. We have to, again, call a person off the road. So for our standpoint, for many reasons, it makes sense to have civilian dispatchers, not only the EMD and all that and the mandates, but certainly in the long run, I think it really makes sense to have a civilian in the station house. And in the long run, it's something that is going to save the town money. I put together what I thought the cost would be associated with that. I had sent it to the town manager. The rate of pay, you can see there if you have questions on it. And also, to cover it would be, would have to hire 5 civilian dispatchers. Again, everything's in the notes, everything's in here. I broke it down for you so you could really take a good look at it and see if there's any errors or anything in there, and also a dispatch supervisor. So the total cost is $121,680, excuse me. That's for half the year, but remember that you really have to double that because we're looking for December to start this. I need a good 6 months to hire somebody, well, first of all, to advertise it, interview, hire, and then train, because we have to have it in place by that time period. So that's the first
And
one.
that is the ongoing cost, right?
That
The 243 is the ongoing
would be
recurring
annual.
salary.
Annual cost, correct.
Ongoing salary cost.
That is correct.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions on that or thoughts?
Is this what the department's paying in the area, chief? They have civilian dispatchers?
Yes, we did a survey and asked what the rate of pay is, and that's where that came from, the $19.
Right.
Chief, we were just having a conversation a little bit about this. I know we tend to, every time we hire somebody, we always talk about the other benefits that they get too.
Correct.
And this is just the salary figures.
That's correct.
That is 100% correct.
Okay, so the,
You are right. And I'm not sure, but I always use by a rule of thumb, you pretty much double it. Is that pretty close? Or is that not that much between all the benefits?
Well, we average about 9,500, because some will take a single plan and some will take the family plan. So the 14,000 is the family plan, the 7,000 or 6,500 is the single plan. So we're looking somewhere about
10,000.
9,500
Per person.
per person.
Yes, ma'am.
So this wouldn't actually fall under a capital,
Right.
though?
No.
But we can,
It'll be part of the operating budget. When we look at when I look at the operating budget, I have to determine in the future what we can afford, we're gonna increase our base.
Right.
How much can we reasonably increase that base and still be able to anticipate additional revenue in FY13 and beyond to sustain it? And that, and we also have a police officer who in 15, in 15 that will be coming off of a grant that we're
Correct.
gonna then
Correct, 2 more years,
own
yeah.
as well.
Correct.
And so that,
Correct.
we're looking at that cost as well.
Would there be any capital, Chief Brzezinski, like anything that you need to do?
Uniform, things like that,
Okay.
yes. But it'd be minimal. It'd certainly be within, I would like to buy khaki pants and a nice uniform, a nice shirt for the civilian dispatchers. But other
And
than that,
that's not in your budget?
that's not in there, but that's certainly within, it's not.
Something you can
something-
afford within the budget?
Exactly, within a budget.
But a hard
But it's-
cost as far as a computer, as
Right,
far
that's
as,
it,
that's already in place.
That's in place. Everything is in place. That's the beauty of
Software.
this. When we built the
Yeah.
station, we thought that this was,
Right.
was the way the town eventually was gonna go, so that's how we planned it. Everything's in place. We're ready to go tomorrow.
Okay. Anybody else?
And
All right.
you brought up a good point on the capital. I was unsure, when I originally sent the town manager that, I was unsure if this fell into the capital or not, so I, and
Oh,
after the
absolutely.
conversation.
We
It's
put it
some-
there
Had this
because-
conversation several times.
Right.
This is something we need to do.
Yeah, but this
Done.
is obviously part of the operating budget.
Yes.
And would not be a capital
After this.
expenditure.
But it plays into the whole, where we talk about central dispatch. I think you'd want to make sure that you had this information on your radar before you made any decisions in
Right.
that regard. So it's still, though not capital per se, it still plays into that and it's valuable
Right.
knowledge. Good.
But the other ones are capital.
Yes, the other one's a capital for sure. The second one, the second highest priority, certainly, and you could debate this, whether this would be the first highest priority, it all, I guess maybe they're equal, is to replace the phone system in the station. It's been we've had a lot of conversations with the town manager over the phone system. It was something that was put in prior to his arrival. I've been dealing with this for close to 4 years now, and the system just doesn't work. Even today, we couldn't use it. Somebody called up, it went down last week, and today we couldn't dial out. We couldn't dial, I asked the dispatch to dial 411 to get a number and notify somebody on a disabled car that I happened to see on Chestnut Street, and she couldn't get out. It just doesn't work. The system is unreliable. The town manager has made a valiant effort. I had told him I had done this for 3 years and fought the good fight. He also wanted to put his efforts in, and much to his credit, he spent money, tried, because of course we don't want to replace the system, but we have to replace the system. The good part is that once the system gets replaced, we still have pieces and parts of the phone system that is, the hardware and all that can be used in other locations. So if things break up here, the system can be used up here. So that won't go to waste. It just will go, it'll be stored and accessible, as parts need to get replaced up here. But the system is just unreliable. It's very frustrating. It's dangerous. And I think the town manager and I have had a lot of conversations. We've documented back and forth. I've documented, he asked me to document at one point, and I think he was, I probably drove you crazy, because there was just so many issues.
When we finally file a lawsuit against the person who installed the system,
Right.
we have all of that
Yes, we do.
documentation that we need in order to prove that the system was never installed properly.
So this will get me a system that works, and it's on the state bid. Please.
No, I was gonna say, so 51,000, it says 50 here, but that's fine.
Okay.
But I was just gonna say, let's say this goes forward and this happens,
Mhm.
we're gonna get a contract, some kind of service contract too, right?
Yes, that's included.
So we get
Yes.
upgrades and stuff.
Yes.
And that would be
Yes.
somewhere else in a budget.
Right.
Correct.
Because that's not truly a capital item.
Correct.
And that would be a recurring every
Yes.
year. that
Yes,
When
but
I
that's
came
very good,
on-
that's like insurance.
Service
That's-
When I came on
Absolutely.
back in 2010, the phone system was still operating on the beta system that
Yeah,
was
the
installed
test system.
way back when,
Yeah.
with no upgrades.
Yeah.
And so it was never gonna work.
How quickly could this be replaced, switched out? What's the time frame? And
They're ready to go.
Yeah.
I've had many conversations with this particular vendor. We've had a lot of success with this vendor. This is a vendor we've used previous phone system was this vendor. I've met with them on several occasions. They're good to go. So.
Yeah, and I can say Metropolitan Phone System, Metropolitan is the company, they installed all the phone systems in Mansfield, so I've worked with them.
They're excellent.
Never had an issue, never had a hitch, never had a problem.
That was your prior system, wasn't it?
Correct.
That was scrapped.
Yeah. We won't go
And-
there.
Josh,
Any
I just
We won't go
was
there.
saying.
any other questions?
You did all the research on the prior one, right?
Yes.
See, well versed and you know it.
Yeah.
He
I like it. Anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay.
All right.
So that, now, would that be your number one priority besides civilian dispatch?
Absolutely.
Well,
Okay,
the
this
phone
is,
system is a number one, actually.
This is your
'cause
number
this would
one.
be
That's a
a
capital
a
outlay.
budget expenditure.
Right,
Correct.
okay, so
Thank you.
that's your number one priority.
That's my number one.
Okay,
So the next one would be cruiser replacement. I updated everything for you. This was as of yesterday, I think. I'm looking to replace and upgrade 4 cruisers. A 2005 Crown Victoria with 97,000. The 2005, 97 and 96,000 Crown Victorias, and another 2006 with 107,000, and then an Explorer, which is a supervisor's car, with 98,000. I wrote, what the cost to replace them. That's again under the state contract. I forwarded the town manager the bid specs. In this, just note that I'm looking for these 4 cruisers, but this still leaves me with 2 more cruisers that got over 100,000 miles on it. So because I know the thought pattern is it should be in the budget, and it should have been in the budget. It used to be in the budget. It hasn't been in for about 3 years now, maybe 4. It's an issue that we've gone back and forth with, but it really is. We know we have to replace cruisers. I mean, we know it. We know every year we're going to have to replace them. So, in my humble opinion, I think we should go back to the 2 cruisers a year schedule, and that will cover us. And then in the event that once in a while we have to do an administrative cruiser, we can throw a 3rd one in every 3 years or every 4 years or whatever it might be. But we really need to throw in our operating expense, in my humble opinion, 2 cruisers a year. We haven't done it, hence the reason we're buying 4, or I'm proposing to buy 4, and then we're still going to have to put 2 in next year. The next
It's
Would be
13.
FY13.
FY13.
But then it'll be in the
Then it will get us okay. Then we'll be
Yeah.
okay. We'll be back to
And
where we
start
used to be. Now we just stay with the 2.
so that would
And
be replacing all 6, or do we actually have more
we-
cruisers?
We have more cruisers.
Yeah, these just-
We have 7 marked and 4 unmarked cruisers. So that's our total. Then we have some ones through the DA's office and whatnot, some undercover cars, but that's not a car that you purchase. Those are cars that we seize through drug asset forfeiture and use for surveillance work and whatnot. So those are kind of hidden cars.
As far as the rotation of them, there would be like 11 rotating
Correct.
replacement.
Correct. And if we replace them consistently at two a year, we're okay. I mean, that was really the way it was set up, and it's funny how history just keeps repeating itself, because we've done this. And then when fiscal times get tight, we cut the cruisers out. That's what happens, and it's justifiable, because we're looking at, are we going to get rid of people, or are we going to try to stretch a year? But then 1 year becomes 2 years, 2 years becomes 3 years, and now we're on to 4 years, and then it catches up sooner or later.
Right.
Sorry.
I just curious, the unmarked cars? it-
Go ahead.
What do they look like?
No, because I know like, the cruises themselves
Okay.
run 24/7.
Correct.
So do you get any longer out of the unmarked?
You do.
Do you-
The unmarked cars, typically, yeah, definitely you get more mileage. If you're talking about the cars that we seize, the drug cars.
No, I mean the unmarked ones, so, because you know,
Oh,
so then
absolutely.
you wouldn't be, because I know that the cruises themselves run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Correct.
All year long.
But your unmarked
so
cars
it's-
typically don't run 24 hours a day. But yes, you typically get some more. Plus
Just
they're,
curious.
you know,
Would, if we went, if we got back to replacing 2 a year, would that be in the, a reoccurring capital budget, or would that be in the operating budget?
We would set up the portion of the police department budget would have, reoccurring capital. In
Okay.
other words, they're purchased every year.
Okay.
So it would be part of the police department's budget, but for capital expenditures.
Got it. Thank you.
And that's the way we used to do it, once
Yeah.
upon a time. It
We used
really
to
is.
get 2 one year and 3 the next.
Correct, correct.
So is that something that you'll be adding in annually, just in the capital plan, or on the budget side, just to clarify?
It'd be in the budget side.
That's correct. And the last one is the computer server upgrade, and realizing that there is, realizing that there's only so much money. I get that. I thoroughly understand that. It's something that we need to look at. I'm hoping that this is something that we can target with the revolving account next year. We can target, I know that revolving account, some people like it, some people don't like it. It is useful to us. These are the types of things that we can replace. The computer system, this upgrade is recommended on our computer expert, who's Bob Shaw, who's been with us for many, many years. He's recommended, and that we need to replace this. We need to keep up on it. All our critical information, if you can imagine, the last close to 20 years worth of information, photographs, everything is in our system. We have a great system, but like every great system, you gotta keep up on it.
Do we
And that's
have,
53,920.
53,920. Thank you.
do we have some sort of like off-site
Great question.
place that, for business continuity?
We do. Well, we do and we don't. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
We have redundancy. We have our main computer room, and then we have a computer that mirrors everything in our evidence room. It's all within the station house.
Okay.
Off-site, we do have off-site. It's taken off-site and stored at a location off-site. We can talk about that a little bit later. I'd rather not disclose that.
Yeah, no.
But in a perfect world, you'd certainly do off-site completely. And we've talked about that. I talked with that. Bob Shaw has been on me for many, many years about that, but the issue is money. It's fairly expensive.
It's a yearly expenditure.
Yeah.
But we got that covered in a different way, but in a perfect world, we would go exactly, what is it, virtual, whatever they call it, virtual off-site.
Yeah, something, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to see what,
That's great. Thank
we
you.
have something.
Appreciate that. And that's it. That's it for me for capital expenditures. See, I'm easy.
Anybody have any questions in regard to that item?
Anybody? Did I miss anything or not cover anything?
I mean, it's everything that's on here.
Yeah, everything should be right in there. It's directly off there. I wanted to make sure that you had it so that when I walked away, if I missed something or if you tried to figure out, if I didn't say it, it should be on there for you.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
All right,
Everybody
great.
okay? Good?
Thank you for your
All right.
time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
All right, thank you.
Nice. Thank you for the
Thank you.
notes.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Chief, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
You
Thank you. Thank you. And Deb, you have a copy of that for the, do we have an extra copy of these? I know,
I have one here. I can make copies.
yeah, only with both
With others
Michelle
missing, yeah.
and Sean being gone.
Okay, I'll make copies
Copies.
of
All right, that would be great.
Do you want to bring in the school department and highway
Yeah.
next week?
I mean, what I would say is if anything that's going to be presented at town meeting with a capital expenditure that's going to be presented, I think we should like to talk to them, probably,
Yeah.
I mean, highway,
Well, again, we're working on what we have available as far
Right.
as operating budget and what we have available as far as capital expenditures based on how we're breaking out that formula that we've used. We really don't have $1 million in free cash.
no.
Some of it is, L&R money, some of it is, money that, really is only one-time, revenue pieces. So when we really get down to it, our total free cash budget is about $83,000 when you look at what is in the budget reoccurring. But we need to examine that, and probably at our next meeting, I will have better numbers for you as to what we feel comfortable with as far as dollars that are available. Then we need to have a huge discussion about what the priorities are after you've spoken with the
From a
departments.
town
Yeah,
overall.
from a town perspective.
Well,
So,
looking at the numbers, it looks like, I mean, schools, we should probably want to talk to schools, highway, park and rec, maybe. COA's on here.
Board of Health has some.
Board of Health
you
has
know,
got some.
Library has some stuff.
So yeah, if we could maybe bring in
Yeah,
two
you know,
next
maybe we
week.
can bring, yeah, we can do
Next
that.
week's the 28th, and then we've got probably two or three more before the town meeting.
And I think we'd be fine, because some of the capital
Do
numbers,
we want-
although we probably want to
Yeah, no,
review,
it's just-
those monies are outside of
No, that's good.
the capital. They have reoccurring revenue within their budgets to afford those capital items in
Sewer and water,
sewer,
Right.
water, and Strawberry
Strawberry
Valley.
Valley.
But I don't think we have anything capital from sewer. I think we have some water capital requests, I think, is it? No, sewer, I'm sorry.
Yep.
They have a dedicated Brockton sewer upgrade of $2 million.
Well, there you go.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, just very briefly, wanted to cover it last week, but the schools have approximately $975,000 in roof replacements. So I've been scratching my head as to how best we can really afford to replace $975,000 worth of roofs, and whether or not we could get somebody else to do it for us. In my discussions, and we don't know how this is going to work, but we established discussions with a company out of California that basically does solar paneling on roofs. That's their specialty. They have the largest roofing company in the country that puts the roofs on. And the reason why they put roofs on first is because the panels need a 30-year life expectancy. So if we can marry those two concepts and get a company to come in and put solar paneling on our roofs, we can get the roofs done for nothing. And what they do, they showed me the process that they do, is they come in and they do this infrared scan of all of the roofs, the flat roofs in particular. And they find out where the quote-unquote soft spots are. They cut those soft spots out and put new material in, and then they put a whole new layer of roof on. And that gives you a 30-year, potentially a 30-year roof, because they don't want to come back and disrupt their power generation to patch a roof. So they share that common desire to have a good roof underneath paneling. And we would enter into a PPCA agreement, purchase power cost arrangement, that would obviously provide us with a reduced cost for the schools as far as even lower than what we currently pay. They would put the roof on, and in addition to that, I spoke to them about putting a full generator on at the high school, which is really our emergency management shelter. And right now, from what I'm told, the emergency generator will only light the secondary lighting system, not the primary.
The one we
So
have currently?
it doesn't light up the gymnasium as much, it doesn't light up the kitchen or any of the operations of the building itself. In order for us to have a true shelter there, we would like to be able to cook there, provide hot meals if necessary, and have that generator last for approximately a week. So they would also build that into the project as well. So we can get all of that for nothing and get a PPCA, purchase power agreement on a cost basis.
Would that also include the cost of the solar panels, or is their
Yeah.
outlay, they come in, they do the roof, they install those things, and it's the energy generation that kind of covers those.
Well, for them,
Yeah,
they're
for
looking
them.
for the agreement, the credits.
Okay, yeah.
Those are worth.
They get the credits.
They get the
We
credits.
yeah, okay, but we get a new roof and we get
We
a
have a new
break
roof,
on
we get
our,
new panels, we have a lower purchase power agreement, and we get a generator, a fully functional generator for the high school.
okay, Barbara?
So the solar panels that, would they harvest the energy from us? Or would we be able to also use that energy ourselves?
Well, it would depend on how much the capital costs are that they have to upfront. So we could get a very good agreement that would give us those types of arrangements, but we may have to pay some aspect of the capital cost for the roofs in order to offset that. So it's.
In order to be able to use that as our source of energy,
Right.
we'd need to work something out with them in
Right.
a contract
And
form.
there's a possibility that we can. All of this is gonna have to be bid out
Right.
as far as the roof construction and because it's on public
Right.
property. The purchase power agreement is something that we negotiate. That's not something that we necessarily have to bid on.
And you do that after you bid out?
Yes.
But the idea here being there are alternatives to just hiring somebody to do your roof and be done with it.
Well,
This is an
hopefully,
alternative.
Yeah. I'm looking at it as a very viable alternative. I think it's something we really need to take a serious look
Yeah.
at. $975,000, nothing to sneeze at.
Barbara?
So I just want to check, so if we have to go out to bid for it, we're not doing anything wrong by talking to
Oh,
a
God.
company that does that, because then, just because you talk with that company doesn't mean that that's the company, anyone can then bid.
It would be
How many of
open-
those companies? There's probably not a lot of those.
Oh, there's quite a
There
few.
is.
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few. I would say that we'd probably get 8 to 10 proposals from companies that are doing it now. You know? We just happened to speak to this company. They came in.
Right, so
and-
you're looking into something.
And we're looking into it, we're exploring. We haven't gotten any prices from them. We haven't done anything. They haven't looked at the roofs.
I just
We're
want to
in
make
the
that clear, just so
exploratory
when people
stage.
are watching at home, that it is something that goes out to bid, it's not something
Oh,
that
yeah,
we're
no.
just.
Well, I'm sure there would be information that would
Right.
have to be provided to everybody, you know, because this
Oh,
would be,
yeah.
this would be like, if it were to, if the decision were to go that way, it'd be very exciting. It would be something that that a lot of people would be interested in,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
And not only that, but let's say we didn't do the solar at all and we were gonna pay for the roofs, we still have to bid it out.
Right.
So the roof piece still has to be bid out, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, whether-
And then the solar piece is just the, gravy, so to speak, that we would also bid out in a way that would get them to finance the project and give us the best deal. So this person that we're talking to may not be giving us the best deal.
Right.
Right.
But we put in fashion a proposal through council in their guidance that gives us the best competitive footing so that, we get the best deal for the town. And that's what we're looking for. We want somebody, my desire is to have the generator, this, and all of these things
Right.
done. And maybe there's something out there that somebody else can do that's gonna make it really more beneficial to us. And we don't know that until we do the bid process.
And this is a lot of data gathering and, information gathering
Right,
to make
exactly.
the best, to make the
Exactly.
best decision.
Right. But it's thinking out of the box a little bit. It's
Absolutely.
getting us to really say, how can we get somebody else to pay for some of our capital needs so it frees up our ability to use this money elsewhere?
So that would be, yeah, so that, I think that would be good to get the school department in, regardless of however we get it done.
Mhm.
Clearly, these things need to get done, and
Oh, yeah,
We can get someone to pay for it,
incidentally,
right?
they're on, Dr. Peter Schaefer, Felicia, they're all, they think this is a great idea. They're open to it, so, that's a big piece of it.
excellent. All right, so maybe we can figure out who we can bring in the next couple of weeks, and anything else you wanted to touch high level on? Or should we just wait till we bring some folks in?
I think so. I think when we bring some folks in, we're gonna be,
I like that idea.
we'll have questions and so forth.
Excellent. All right then, so that kind of covers our two capital plan discussions for the evening, police and fire, and a little preview for
Yeah.
the schools. Anybody have anything else they want to address to the town manager? Nope.
One other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was a GIS, which is a database of layered information that impacts all towns, I mean, all departments in the town. We met yesterday with SEA Consultants. They do the work for the towns now. The consultants are a non-bid issue for us. However, we may want to bid out, the aerial photography or the mapping. What this does is if we desire to have all of the departments participate, police, fire, water, sewer, highway, it maps out every resource that we have, and it layers it one on top of the other so that we can integrate all of that information into one single point. So for example, if we had all of the data information for, and we do, for all of our parcels from assessors, that's our foundation. From there, we build information from the town clerk that includes census data, that includes marriage, it includes everything. So we now have people living at certain addresses. Then we integrate all of the building department stuff. For example, when you build a house, you have to submit plans. Those plans tell you how many bedrooms, how the place is heated, if there are any chemicals in any of the buildings, we know where those chemicals are. So then we add that layer so that now we not only know where the fire hydrants are, we know if the fire hydrants are fed by 12-inch mains, 16-inch mains, 8-inch mains, 10-inch mains. It tells the firefighter before they get there what they can rely on for water pressure to fight a fire. They also know who's in that house. They also know how many bedrooms. They also know if the kids are under 5, if there's a single parent, if there are people that are, living in a multiple family situation. They know all that information before they leave the fire station by calling up that address under GIS. In addition to that, the police have the ability to map out where their level 2, 3, and 1 offenders are, and how close they are to schools because they have to be within a certain radius. We tie that back into an enhanced 9/11 system. If we had to evacuate a particular area of town, we can draw a circle in the field as to where, if it's 300 feet, 500 feet, and feed that information from the database back to reverse 9/11. All of the individuals are notified within a minute or two that they have to evacuate the area. So this information begins to get us to work smarter rather than harder. And when the chief was talking about, still having cards, to deal with some of his computer stuff, it means we're working harder, we're not working smarter, and this information is important to us. The aerial photography piece, which is the foundation, the matrix that we need in order to build the data system, I think is going to cost us $12,500. That provides us just with the imagery. And that imagery will get us to take a snapshot in time of every parcel of land in the town of Abington.
Can't use Google Earth?
You could use Google Earth, and that gets you down there, but that's all you get.
Yeah.
We don't get the topography. We don't get
You get more.
delineations. Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's
And that's what we need, so that when we look at a parcel of land to build a new school on, we can plan that parcel and put that footprint right on a parcel of land and know whether or not it's suitable for a school, a fire station, a police station, or whatever we want. So this information not only is shared and brokered and used by all departments, but it begins to build our foundation so that people, for example, it'd be on the web, people could look up their parcel, look up other parcels, integrate it with the database, which is already online for the Board of Assessors. But now the Board of Assessors can look at these parcels and see, based on what their card is, as to whether or not there's additions or other things that they need to go out and inspect. So they can do it right from their desk versus having to go out each time
which is more efficient, better
Yeah.
use of our time and our money, and
Yeah,
better decisions being made in the office.
yeah, and we can do it on 5-year or 10-year increments. For non-growth communities who are not growing excessively fast, every 10 years, we can do that flyover. The total cost for the mapping from bells to whistles is about $90,000. Now, we don't need to come up with that money all at once, but we do need to phase it in over time. So we're going to look to add that to our system. We just hired hopefully hired a new IT person that came up from Jacksonville, Florida, who has family, lived and grew up in Holbrook, has a sister who lives in Abington, on Dale Street, Dale Street, yeah. And he passed our litmus test of 40 questions and all kinds of technical garbage, and they're talking, in acronyms. I know nothing about it, but we, feel as though we're going to have a very good, strong IT department that's going to drive this forward. And we've also hired a new building inspector, so I think we're going to be off to a very good start.
And those are budgeted items,
And those are all budgeted items, except for the GIS. However, I will tell you that GIS is going to be extremely important for us for stormwater management purposes. The federal and state government is now mandating that we map out all of our outflow points for stormwater drainage and where they're going. We can't do that without GIS, so that's another important factor. And that's mandated, and if we don't meet that criteria, it's a problem, but, something we can manage.
Are there state or federal grants or anything like that that could
We,
be considered?
Yes, and I think that part of the grant process, we applied for a grant in my previous job, and that started our GIS system. And I think it was $60,000. And it gave us enough to do, some of the topography mapping and some of the layers, which cost money.
Yeah.
Each layer costs, a different amount of money. Wetlands delineation is a layer. Topography is a layer. Zoning is a layer. They can take our zoning and map that and overlay that. So it becomes a very good planning tool for us. And it's something that we want to really get into. So that's all I wanted to say at this point.
Fabulous. Anybody? All right, John, thanks a lot. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you having us here. We'll see you next week. I'll talk to Peter Schaefer.
Yep,
Tell him we're on for next week along with Kenan.
great.
And if Kenan's not going to be long, maybe we can squeeze somebody else in. I do have an extra copy of the capital plan if anyone wants it. I don't know, I think everyone has it, but I could give an extra copy. And you need copies of
Just Chief Majensky's.
Majensky's.
Yeah, which
So
I
I'll
wrote
go-
all over mine. but-
Okay, I'll go do
Okay.
that now.
John, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right, fabulous. Okay, that was very productive. Got some good information. Yep, I was just gonna say, on our agenda, we also have a couple little sort of housekeeping things here too. If I could jump into the approval of the meeting minutes from September 14th.
Make
Anyone?
a motion to approve.
And second, all those in favor? Okay, great, unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks, Debbie. Another sort of housekeeping issue. Debbie was kind enough to make copies of the ATFC, the Association of Town Finance Committees, which is a Massachusetts Municipal Association group. I mentioned it before, that Saturday, October 15th, there is the annual meeting of that. I've said it before, and we've got all the details here. It's an excellent morning and afternoon of information with regard to finance committees, not only we go, but it's all different municipalities throughout the state of Massachusetts that go to that. So if you guys can please let me know.
Here's an extra one of those.
Oh, John, thank you.
As soon as the computer warms up and prints them out, I'll bring them into you, okay?
All right, you can, if you want to do it tomorrow. I
No,
can-
no, I'll bring them
Yeah,
in.
Maureen, are these for people that aren't here?
Yes.
We can get them to you tomorrow, because I'll
Yeah.
get them to them at the next meeting.
Well, they have all this information too that they need, is that?
I think it was just the Chiefs thing, so that's,
It was just the chief's thing?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
think-
I can do that tomorrow, but, you know, if they're done before I
Oh,
leave, I'll
wait a
bring them
minute.
in. I'll bring them into you.
Tomorrow? Tomorrow's your birthday.
I know, I'll be in tomorrow.
happy birthday,
birthday.
John.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Happy
How
birthday.
old are you now?
Maureen,
Yes.
what is the, check with Deb, when we need to, pay that by?
Well, October
I'll let her
7th,
know as far
um,
as getting the due, you know,
Yeah,
getting the,
October 7th is when we need to return the form and the funds, like the registration funds. So I do know at this point that, I know a couple of us are going, so if you guys can even just, you don't have to let me know on camera, just let me know so that we can put that in. We have a couple weeks, but we'd like to send that in, and I'm quite sure they'll accept our registration after the fact, after October 7th, but, I mean, that's only a week before the actual meeting, so we don't have that much time after that, so let me know who plans to go, okay? That's that, and, Rick, would you like to present to us what happened with the TIF committee meeting? Are you
Yeah, I
prepared?
gave everybody handouts earlier.
Thank you.
The minutes of the meeting here. And what it boils down to is, we elected a chairman, a vice chairman, secretary, and I forget what the other was. But, we're gonna meet next Tuesday with Cape Cod Lumber, and they're gonna make a presentation, a copy of which I gave everybody here, it'll be the same presentation.
Oh, good.
And then we'll be discussing what we'll do after that. Everything's basically, that we talked about is stated here in the minutes.
Excellent.
I think it's gonna help us to have, you know, this company expand here in Abington. But we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. And so you'll be meeting with the Cape Cod Lumber guys next
Next
week,
Tuesday,
next
right.
Tuesday.
And,
Where do you meet?
we meet here in the town hall. I think it's the Carter room, no, the Buckley room,
Okay, in the Buckingham.
because the town, the school committee's meeting here.
Okay.
So it'll be,
And that's an open meeting, right?
that's an open meeting.
Yep, September 27th at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, Tuesday meeting at 7. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Rick. We'll have a chance to take a look at that
Yeah, take a look
presentation.
at
And for
that
anyone.
stuff. It has a sample of what they're looking for. That doesn't mean that this is what we're gonna do. The sheet right here is an example of what they're looking for in tax relief.
Okay.
Um,
And it breaks out all the years. They've got it
Right.
estimated on 10 years here.
right.
Okay. All right, excellent. That sounds great. Thank you for attending. And I
you.
noticed that you're the vice chair. I noticed.
I'm
Congratulations.
glad I was here because the guy that wasn't there is the chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I put together and sent out, well, actually, I didn't put it together. Deb put together the department liaison assignments that we went over last week, so take a look at those. And what I would hope to do is distribute those along with our contact information, so the department heads, thank you, John, so the department heads know who their liaison is and how to contact that person. So if there's any, I don't imagine there's any errors, so I'm going to put together, like I said, our contact information and probably email it out to people tomorrow.
Okay.
Or I can make hard copy and put it in their mailboxes, whatever. So that's excellent, thank you. Cindy, do we actually have a liaison report? Do you want
No,
to?
I just met with the chief, fire chief earlier.
Okay.
Just to kind of see what he was gonna talk about a little bit tonight, so we all get the same.
Okay, we got kind of the report.
You got the report, you got a more detailed report.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else have an opportunity to touch base with their department heads? You weren't told to? Oh, you did? Go ahead.
just this school, because I went in to explain that I had hoped to be able to attend the strategic planning.
Right.
But I
It just-
wasn't able to do it. It was,
Barbara's talking about the school strategic planning committee that already has met. and we weren't
Right.
able to.
So he's
put
gonna,
that somewhere.
they put together a whole report and all of that, and you can get a copy of that. And I'm trying to remember now what the, one of the big things that they discussed was getting information out, or better getting information out, what's actually being done in the schools right now, you know, what, because there's just been so many changes, there's a lot of confusion about what they do have, what they don't have, what they, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So that was one of the things,
Communication, dissemination of information.
and just, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing that report too.
Absolutely.
All right.
Maybe I can ask, I don't know if they'll have that by the time, if he comes next week, I'll try to touch base with him and see if
Sure, maybe you
we
can
can
touch,
get,
yeah.
you know.
If we've got the time,
something.
maybe you can go over that as well.
Okay.
That would be good. Thank you. All right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? We're sort of at the end of our agenda. There wasn't really a whole lot of correspondence today in our mailbox. I can just tell you that the annual Abington Town Appreciation Day for Strawberry Valley is Sunday, October 2nd. Tea times between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. are free, but you have to call and you have to get your tea time booked. So there you go, so that's that. All right, anything else? I don't think so, so
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you. Hold on, let me shut this off.